Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
Analytics company vidIQ has certified Queer News Tonight, the YouTube channel, as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 10 million views.
We are proud that Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
We thank you for watching and supporting our voices in the Rainbow family.
There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Thursday, June 12th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we'll tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show.
Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model as PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 10,000 LGBTQ television stories. We present Proud Fete in August, and we declare love is in the air with Pride Fort Lauderdale on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We present Pride Fete in August and Pride Fort Lauderdale in February. Our magazine, events, and television shows, talk and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 community leaders will sit at this table and share their voices as our anchors. Together, we will host this show to support our diverse family. Let's meet tonight's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Alex Morash. Alex has served as editor-in-chief of Options Magazine, media director of National LGBTQ Task Force, and press secretary for the Florida Democratic Party. Alex, 30 Days of Pride. Vagabundos Mega Pride Pool Party celebrates pride and style on June 15th. Tell me, what's happening out?
Sure thing, Rex. On Sunday, June 15th, the Vagabundos Mega Pride Pool Party will turn up the heat at the Kimpton Shore Break Hotel in Fort Lauderdale Beach. Running from 1 to 7 p.m., this high-energy event will serve as the ultimate closing celebration for Wilton Manor's Pride Weekend. Hosted at 2900 Riamar Street, the pool party will welcome everyone from daddies to circuit boys and fabulous souls of all kinds for an unforgettable afternoon of music, fun, and pride. Attendees will dance to beats spun by resident DJ Mike James and the legendary DJ Sin Morera. Guests can expect handcrafted cocktails, tasty bites, exclusive bottle service, and a vibrant atmosphere under the South Florida sun. Valet parking will be available for $20, and tickets start at $28.52 and can be purchased via Eventbrite. Hotspots Happening Out and Queer News Tonight is celebrating 30 Days of Pride by promoting 16 dazzling events in the LGBTQ community. So stay tuned. And, overall, it sounds like a really fun event. I love pool parties and daddies and circuit boys and all other things you can find in The Wizard of Oz. I know that some of you are going. Leo, aren't you going to this event? What do you know about it?
I'm going. It's always a lot of fun. The guy who runs it, Ramon, he's a good friend. He's, that support him, and also the party. Plus, it's fun. It's Pride, and you get to get some after party after the whole Pride parade on Saturday.
I was going to say, if I do not have a splitting headache on Sunday, maybe I'll go. Maybe I'll go.
Well, nothing that a cold shower, and a cold pool won't help.
I mean, we have to remember that, Pride Month is all of June, so while we are celebrating our own Pride on the 14th, there are parties all June, so get out there. There's something for everybody, and I hope to see everybody at the party, and maybe they'll get you on the mic.
You'll see me because I'll be dancing, so come check it out.
All right. Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Vagabundos Mega Pride Pool Party on June 15th. That is the big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Dr. Bobby Huen. A world traveler and well-versed in global affairs, Bobby provides an international perspective and current events. A PhD in conflict resolution, Bobby is a certified civil and family mediator and the founder of BH Conflict Resolution Services. Bobby, 30 Days of Pride. Floatarama sets sail on June 21st. Tell me, what's happening out?
Well, on Saturday, June 21st, Fort Lauderdale's waterways will sparkle with pride as Floatarama 2025 sets sail. Now, in its 6th year, the event will raise funds for South Florida organizations that support LGBTQ youth. Alex Miranda, WSVN's Deco Drive reporter, will serve as this year's Grand Marshal. Festivities will begin at 10 a.m. with a pre-departure mimosa bar at Boat Campus Sports Bar and Grill. At 11 a.m., guests will board the yacht Catalina for a 2.5-hour Pride on Water brunch cruise. After the cruise, the celebration will continue with a lively waterfront tea dance on the patio until 5 p.m. Tickets will cost $150 per person, with all proceeds benefiting LGBTQ youth-focused charities. To join the fun and learn more, visit floatarama.org. I have to admit that sounds interesting, although I get seasick, so
Yeah.
it works.
I love Alex Miranda. I think he's a good representative for the community, and it's a lot of fun.
It's like Pride on water.
Well, water plus food.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be food and drinks and a lot of fun, but also, it's supporting a cause. The youth of today, both LGBTQ and everybody, they're, under fire, and, funding for programs are under fire. So, if anybody's looking at the ticket price, just remember that, most organizations right now are hurting, and, it takes grassroots efforts. So organizations like Floatarama and others that are holding these Pride events during June definitely go to a good cause. So, hopefully you can get out there.
My question for these Pride on Water events is, will they prove whether or not drag queens can float?
I mean, I can't talk for myself, but I had enough couch cushions when I was in drag to say yes.
As long as you're on the boat.
But yeah, hopefully the boat stays afloat and we don't have anybody overboard.
PSA, do not push any drag queens.
I was not advocating that. Goodness.
Well, Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Floatarama on June 21st. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Leo Harley. Leo is a former bodybuilder turned fitness expert, holistic therapist, and our local rapper. His new EP, Thirsty, is out now on all streaming platforms. Leo, 30 Days of Pride. Sunserve Transcend Pride Brunch 2025 is June 14th. Tell me, what's happening out?
Kick off Pride Weekend with purpose and pride at Transcend Pride Brunch 2025, happening Saturday, June 14th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Wilton Collective. This high-energy pre-parade celebration will feature drag shows, live music, and dazzling performances by Adriana Linares, myself, and Regina Coco. All to benefit Ariana Center and its vital trans Latinx initiatives. Brought to you with love and sponsorship from Sunserve and a Fountain of Youth. This isn't just brunch, it's visibility, community, and celebration rolled into one. General admissions tickets are for $40. For more details, please visit Sunserve Facebook page. Hotspots Magazine happening out, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating 30 Days of Pride by promoting 16 dazzling events in the LGBTQ community, so stay tuned. Wow, it's going to be great. I can promise you, because, I'll be performing, so I'm all for that event. I love Ariana and what she stands for and her work here in Puerto Rico. So it's going to be a good way to kick off Pride. It's right before the parade. It's close to Wilton Manors, just off the drive, so you can walk to the parade.
Walkable.
It's definitely walkable.
And it will be fun. Plus, you get all the food that you need, for the rest of the day. You go fed, just ready to rock and roll.
I was about to say, where aren't you these days during Pride? You seem to be everywhere.
Yeah, like every.
I thought I was a busy man. No, it's definitely. I love the Wilton Collective. I love Julian over there in the Fountain of Youth. Again, a great organization dealing with the youth of our community. But also, like you said, it's right around the corner from Pride. So if you have plans on going to Pride and you don't want to necessarily be out in the heat,
Yep.
sneak in there, get some food, get some cocktails, then walk on over and enjoy the vendors of Pride right afterwards.
Yeah, and come hear my songs. My new EP Thursday's out, so check it out. You might like it. But you definitely like the live performances. I'm going to have my dancers with me, and we're going to put on a show for you guys, so come check it out.
Okay, I'll be there. Front seat center. Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Sunserve Transcend Pride Brunch 2025 on June 14th. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Larry Farver. Larry has over 20 years of experience in human resources, acting, film, radio, TV, live events, parade float design, production, and casting. He is also a board member of the West Side Association. Larry, 30 Days of Pride. Ladies Love Pride Brunch Party hits Wynwood on June 29th. Tell me, what's happening out?
Sure, Rex. On Sunday, June 29th, Pride Month celebrations will turn up the volume at Crew Lounge Wynwood from 2 to 7 p.m. with Ladies Love Pride, an old school brunch party. Curated by the vibrant queer collective She's Gotta Have It, this is a 21-plus event. The crowd will groove to Atlanta's own DJ, Jay Saki, spinning old school R&B, hip-hop, and funk all afternoon. The brunch will bring the flavor too. Expect $10 chicken and waffles, $5 She's Gotta Have It shots, $10 Don Julio Reposado, and $25 hookah. Held on the Sunday of every month, this Pride Month edition will celebrate queer joy, sisterhood, and nostalgia in full color. For tickets and more information, visit eventbrite.com. Hotspots happening out, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating 30 Days of Pride by promoting 16 dazzling events in the LGBTQ community. So stay tuned.
I mean, we love our brunches, so I don't know how anybody's going to stay thin during Pride and be proud of the food that we're putting away.
Chicken and waffles.
I was about to say,
We don't eat enough.
no, you sold me, Larry, on the $10 chicken and waffles. Once I heard that, I'm like, done. That sounds like a good event. I don't need to know anything else. Chicken and waffles is always
and
good.
it's for girls, huh? I think. No?
I don't think they'll mind someone else.
Well, it's promoted by a queer organization, so it's not necessarily for women, but it's by women. So I mean, again, this is a way to expand your breadth of your community. Go and visit a place that you maybe never visited before. Again, all of June is Pride Month, so not just the 14th. So, get out there and support everybody and just have some fun and meet some new people. So, and again, the chicken and waffles, and I'm there for the tequila shots. I'll relive my old college days real quick.
And the hookah.
Oh, dear.
Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at Ladies Love Pride Brunch Party on June 29th. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Rex Rogosch. Rex is a visionary designer with over 30 years of experience in product design, interior design, and architecture. Also known in the drag community as International Lords, Rex recently returned to performing. As president and co-founder of Laterra, he champions mental health awareness through vibrant, inclusive events. Rex, 30 Days of Pride, Hollywood celebrates Juneteenth Pride on June 19th. Tell me what's happening.
Absolutely, Alex. On Thursday, June 19th from 7 to 9 p.m., the Legacy Builders will host the third annual Juneteenth Pride celebration at the Hollywood Central Performing Arts Center. The event will highlight Black and LGBTQIA culture through an evening of entertainment, awards, and community dialogue. This year's celebration will follow a vibrant schedule. A health hub will run from 5 to 7 p.m., followed by a cocktail hour from 7 to 8 p.m. The main production, featuring live performances, a panel discussion, legacy awards, and a mindfulness closing, will take place from 8 to 9 p.m. Organizers aim to create a safe, affirming space for expression, healing, and unity during Pride Month. The evening will bring together artists, community leaders, and changemakers from across South Florida. More event details and registration will be available on eventbrite.com. Hotspots Happening Out and Queer News Tonight is celebrating 30 Days of Pride by promoting 16 dazzling events in the LGBTQ community, so stay tuned. I mean, like I was saying before, Pride Month is all of June, and we have other actual holidays and memorials that fall within June as well. And, under the larger LGBTQIA umbrella, all these other events do also affect us. So, events like this are very important to bring awareness to other things that happen within our community and outside our community, and how we can come together as a community to, further the education and the acceptance of everybody, because, there's sometimes a disconnect between multiple communities.
And I think that's important, especially right now with every minority under attack. We cannot,
Absolutely.
they want to divide and conquer, obviously, and we should not let them.
Absolutely.
And it's good for the outside world. Hopefully our allies, but maybe we'll gain some allies and they'll say, hey, these people in their community, they're diverse. Hopefully there's some intelligent people who may be on the fringe and they come over because we're a lot of fun.
Right, and this particular event just sounds like a wonderful all-day experience, more or less, really including the different parts of Black and queer history for Juneteenth, which is a big part of it that we don't always understand. Because, yes, Juneteenth is sort of put in the middle of Pride Month, the poor things, through just circumstances of history. And to do something this specific, I think, is a great idea, especially for the community. So, thinking about that, Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Juneteenth Pride on June 19th. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Rex Rogosch, and let's queer up gay culture. Survivors to revisit Pulse nightclub before it's demolished. 9 years after the Pulse nightclub shooting shook the heart of the LGBTQ community, survivors and families are returning to their site in Orlando one last time. The building, where 49 people were killed and 53 injured in what was then the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history, will soon be torn down to make way for a permanent memorial. Orlando purchased the property in 2023 for $2 million, with a $12 million memorial expected to open by 2027. This week, about 250 survivors and family members were walking through the nightclub in small groups. Family members of the 49 victims can bring up to 6 guests. Survivors, many of whom have become vocal advocates for gun law reform, are invited with one companion and will also have a chance to speak with FBI agents who investigated the massacre. Brandon Wolf, who survived by hiding in a bathroom, was chosen not to return. Now, with the Human Rights Campaign, he said, quote, "The site of the tragedy is where I feel closest to the people who were stolen from me. For survivors, the last time they were in that space was the worst night possible. It will be really hard to be in that space again," end quote. The Pulse shooting left a deep scar, but this memorial aims to honor, love, not fear. Well, on today, which is the day of Pulse, I was not there personally. I didn't live here, but it would have been a club that I would have been at, and it would have been a night that I would have been at. And I have friends who were personally there who are survivors. And the fact that 9 years later we're still having to deal with trying to get a memorial has been a struggle. And hopefully this starts to bring some healing space and time for them. Grief and tragedy comes in many forms and has no timeline.
Sites of tragedies are often weird that way. We
Correct.
We have to debate and make consensus on what is suitable and what families and survivors would like to do. There's this tower in London that caught on fire 10 years ago, and it's still not torn down yet. They just put a plastic cover on it. And 9/11 took about 10 years to basically decide what to do with it.
There's unfortunately, and there's always a lot of red tape. There's other things that are involved that people don't know about, especially when it comes to building things. However, we tend to be a little faster at doing things for certain sectors, but when it comes to LGBT, I mean, we just finally got a memorial for the Holocaust survivors of LGBT
In Paris.
In Paris, like it's so this has taken a while. There's been some controversy around why it's taken so long as well. So I'm glad to see that it's finally moving forward, so that way we can gain some closure for those people who are survivors and the family and friends of the people who unfortunately we lost.
No, I hear you on that, but like as you were through, Paul's, it was a wound, it's a scar on our community of what that man did to us.
Absolutely.
Like, I was not there either, but like, we all felt it that day. I've had the privilege of interviewing Brandon Wolf before, and he'll talk through the story of what he experienced that day. I've met people who volunteered at the hospital that night to explain to where the doctors listed off the people who were being treated, and then all the other families there who are like, why wasn't our relative mentioned, and how they had to get grief counselors then immediately and deal with it. Like, just anytime you deal with this issue, it's gut-wrenching. So to see, I completely understand people like Brandon not wanting to go back. I get that. Taking a little while on a memorial, that's, as you were saying, it's hard because you do need to get input. The owners, I believe they tried to do something. They weren't successful, which makes sense. They're trying to do a nonprofit, but they run a business. It's very different. It's understandable, and it's both a tragedy to finally see the building go down, but also like I've seen the plans for the memorial, and it does look like a beautiful way to move forward.
We covered that on the show.
We did.
Yes.
Bring closure to these people. I mean, all of the site being there, it just triggers all the trauma that they lived over and over and over again, especially if they live in that area. So it's a good idea.
And unfortunately, I mean, we still today as a community deal with this. I mean, if anybody wants to, sit there and complain about why they get carded to get into a nightclub, or why they have to get pat down, or why we pay, cover charges to pay for security, it's because of this event.
Yes.
Well, we should be careful with that, because people forget that like security doesn't actually make us secure. There was actually a police officer within seconds to actually engage with the shooter. But unfortunately, when people bring in these sorts of weapons of mass destruction, security is not going to help.
I understand that, but I used to come from the time when you could just walk willy-nilly into any nightclub without an ID and wave a flag and go hi. So I mean, we have seen, and I do agree, security doesn't necessarily secure us. And I unfortunately have been a victim of a gun holdup myself. So I get that, and I was in a secured building. Mm-hmm. So I get that, but however, there are so many people who complain and talk about it, and so I just want to bring to light that, guys, we are still dealing with this, and this memorial is the first step in healing for many people, but it's not something that will ever go away, and it's something that we shouldn't just rest on our laurels.
Which is why when we are going to Pride this weekend and any other Pride afterwards, remember, sometimes we just have to pay a little for security just so that things, are taken care of.
And you gotta put up with the padding and showing the ID and staying in line. It's all part of the process, but it's all safety first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it really doesn't make us safe. These are things that people have been pushing that just continue to push this police state of a country when we actually need to deal with gun reform and deal with making sure that these weapons are taken away.
100%. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But
like U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq were very heavily armed. It did not protect all of them. I'm just saying, like, you cannot truly make things secure when these sorts of weapons are out in the public.
And I think, Alex, that's a great long-term goal. But, being involved in city government in the city of Wilton Manors and knowing the mayor and some of the commissioners personally and some of the planners, I think it's wonderful that they do have made the budget for scanning people. It's not something that I enjoy. But if you look back to some of the tragedies, such as what we're talking about today, it's our reality now. It's not our goal for the future. I was lucky enough to enjoy many prides in New York City over the years before I came to Florida over 5 years ago. And certainly to have to go through those maneuvers to enjoy an event, at first it was a little bit put offish. But, certainly I understand.
No, I mean, Wilton Manors commissioners, I think their handling of Pride has not been appropriate. I think greater policing doesn't help, especially since we're going to talk about policing at Pride. In Florida, they're using the police to target people in new ways. I have no idea what policing at Pride is going to look like now. What about immigrants at Pride when you have this much policing? And at the end of the day, as I said, not only were there police at Pulse, there were police at Columbine. There were police targeted by a shooter in Dallas once. The good guy with a gun does not help. It is a myth that I have written about for years, disproving, and I really worry when I see people continue to push this. But at the same time, this memorial, fortunately, isn't part of that.
Well, and just to let you know, and I don't want to take away from the main topic here, but when I attend a commission meeting in the city on behalf of the West Side Association, everyone that goes into the meeting has to go through a scanning process. And unfortunately, we look at a story, I believe that's going to be tonight. Harvey Milk was gunned down. He was a government official. You like to think that things like that don't happen. We've had people go off the rails in Wilton Manors on several occasions. And I won't take away from this main topic, but, Well,
unfortunately, San Francisco did have metal detectors back then, with a former city councilor who went through an old unlocked window, but that's a whole other story.
Well, I mean, like I said, as you can tell, Pulse and other current events have really, scarred our community, and not just our community, but, the United States in general. So this memorial is definitely a step in the right direction, and we obviously have a lot more to talk about and a lot more to debate, both on both sides, what's right and what's wrong, and how things should be handled. But at least we're talking about it openly, and hopefully we're moving forward. So that is our big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up the USA view. Harvey Milk deserves honor, not erasure, says out Representative Sorensen. In a powerful moment on Capitol Hill, U.S. Representative Eric Sorensen delivered an impassioned defense of Harvey Milk during a House Armed Services Committee hearing. This week, Sorensen is the first out LGBTQ congressman from Illinois. His remarks come amid reports of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth planning to strip Milk's name from a Navy ship. The USNS Harvey Milk, launched in 2021, honors the late gay rights pioneer and Navy veteran who served during the Korean War. Milk was forced out of the Navy in the 1950s with an other-than-honorable discharge due to his homosexuality. He later became California's first out gay elected official and was assassinated in 1978. Sorensen addressed Navy Secretary John Phelan directly.
I wanted to take a moment to talk about a veteran who served on a submarine as a diving officer during the Korean War. From 1951 to 1955, this courageous American served our country in the Navy, just like my grandpa did. But unlike my grandpa, this veteran was forced to resign from the Navy, receiving an other than honorable, rather than be court-martialed because of his homosexuality. Harvey Milk, like every veteran who served our nation, deserves our thanks. To Secretary Phelan, can you specifically explain to me and this committee why this administration no longer believes in honoring Mr. Harvey Milk's service to his nation?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Look, Secretary Hegseth is committed to ensuring that the names attached to all DoD installations and assets are reflective of the Commander-in-Chief's priorities, our nation's histories, and the warrior ethos.
Does he not prioritize all veterans, sir?
Potential renaming decisions will be announced once an internal review is completed. So nothing's been decided. He's asked for that review, and then we will.
Would you be able to express to him that it is important that we honor all veterans of their service?
I believe he does honor all veterans.
Thank you. As the only elected LGBTQ person on this committee, and the first ever from my home state, I speak for my neighbors and all Americans when I say that Navy veteran Harvey Milk was a warrior in Korea. Before becoming an elected leader, his service and his life ended with an assassin's bullet. I walk in the footsteps of leaders before me. He stood up for the same people who are being targeted, persecuted, and vilified by this administration today. My grandpa taught me to stand up for every veteran and thank them every time I see them, thank them for their service. But picking and choosing who deserves that thanks, it's not just wrong, it is un-American. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I appreciate your service to our nation, and I yield back.
You will note that Phelan indicated no decision has been finalized and that Hegseth wants military names to reflect Trump's priorities, U.S. history, and the warrior ethos. Sorensen also signed a letter co-led by Representatives Jill Chucata and Nancy Pelosi, joined by nearly 70 other Democrats, which urge Hegseth to rescind the decision. The letter condemns the move as an insult to the LGBTQ service members, especially during Pride Month. And, I do think that this is clearly politically motivated. It is designed to be homophobic. But, I was researching Harvey Milk a little bit before this because of, as someone who's been a fan of his and his politics, so much so that on Twitter, what's the AI that they call it? Grok thinks I most like Harvey Milk in my Twitter feeds. And he was an anti-war activist, a Vietnam War protester, and he's not here for me to ask, but I don't know if he would want a military ship named after him. Apparently this entire line of ships, this type of ship, is supposed to all be named after civil rights leaders, which in some ways is beautiful. I'm not sure if they...
Actually, I can fill in for that because actually the class of ships that's Harvey Milk is named, one of them is USNS Harvey Milk, is actually called the John Lewis class. So all of them are named after civil rights icons. The fact that Hegseth and the administration, whose name I shall not name, were refused, actively trying to dismantle all of it. And never mind just Harvey Milk, the administration already expressed the desire to also rename anything that's named after civil rights heroes, such as Harriet Tubman.
Oh my God.
So this is an attack on every single minority.
I get that. Yeah. And I think Harriet Tubman, because she actually was also a scout and worked in the military, probably wouldn't mind because the military wasn't then. But I don't know if Malcolm X or Martin Luther King would want military vessels named after them. I don't know with Harvey Milk, honestly. I tried to find for sure, but he seems...
oilers, so they just provide...
They're military ships. They're designed to support the U.S. empire and all that. So that's my one concern with this whole discussion. But a fun fact that I think Harvey Milk has for today's politics is he and Mayor Moscone, who also sadly was assassinated that day, they both came in on a wave of younger Democrats pushing out all the old Democrats. I'm like, wonder if anything like that might be happening in this country.
Well, I think, and what I think is sad is with everything that's going on, I mean, this is what this administration is worried about. They're worried about names and how somehow these names are going to hurt them. They're looking at renaming forts and bringing back the Confederate names because that was our history. But I'm like, you're erasing our history and trying to rewrite history as a draft dodger. So let's, what good is this doing?
Pettiness is the whole point. Pettiness
100%.
Pettiness is the entire point of this move.
Yes.
This is nothing to do. I mean, if you didn't tell me that there's a USNS Harvey Milk, I wouldn't remember it. I remember it being commissioned because 5 years ago.
But could I be petty for a moment?
Yes, of course.
You mentioned Trump wants to name them after Confederates, and I've heard that. Yeah,
Confederate names.
I think that makes sense for Trump because he does love losers.
Well,
look, I have shirts that last longer than Confederacy.
facts.
I have shoes that lasted longer than the Confederacy.
You've lasted longer than Confederacy.
Whoa!
That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for the day. I am Bobby Huen, and let's queer up trans rights. Anti-LGBTQ Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene pushes nationwide ban on trans healthcare. On Tuesday, the House Judiciary Committee advanced a controversial bill from far-right Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene that would outlaw gender-affirming care for trans youth nationwide. The so-called Protect Children's Innocence Act, also known as H.R. 3492, passed along party lines and now moves to the full House. If passed, this bill will criminalize puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgeries for transgender minors, and punish those who provide or support such care, including doctors and parents, with prison time. It will also block federal programs from covering gender-affirming care and prevent medical schools from teaching about it. Greene declared the committee vote, quote, a huge win for kids in America.
Hi everyone, I have really great news. My bill, Protect Children's Innocence Act, just passed through the Judiciary Committee. Big thank you to Jim Jordan. Big thank you to Harriet Hageman. They did a fantastic job. This is a victory for children. We have to protect their innocence. We have to allow them to grow up. They can choose who they want to be when they're adults, but there should be no medical industry that mutilates their genitals, gives them poisons, and permanently changes their bodies. Next thing we have to do is get it through Rules Committee and then get it to the House floor for a vote for final passage. This is what we campaigned on. President Trump wrote an executive order to criminalize sex changes on kids, and this is the will of the American people. Stay tuned for more.
But Greene's vicious victory lap might be premature. The bill still needs to clear a full House vote where Republicans hold only a very slim majority, and it faces likely defeat in the Senate where filibuster still applies. Well, first of all, I would say a lot of things about MTG. None of them I can say on air. and this is once again a distraction from real issues. They cannot fix inflation. Tariffs is going to jack up the prices nationwide. But, let's stick it to the 5 trans kids that we know are going through transitions. This is never about regulating children's health. And not about mutilating either. Millions of boys get circumcised every single year. No one said that, you cannot circumcise boys without the explicit say so. And frankly, let me see, makeup is gender affirming. Let's say breast implants are gender affirming care. And any other, and what are you going to tell someone if they're intersex?
Yeah.
If there's intersex, what are they going to tell them? Oh, you can't pick one. You're born that way. So I guess.
Well, let's remember, intersex communities have actually been violated by the medical community, where doctors used to just pick that gender for children back then. Like that's an important part of this entire story. I think if we want to protect children's innocence, we should affirm who they are and let them figure out their identity and go work with their doctors. If she doesn't want kids being poisoned, I'd like to know what she's going to do to investigate the current HHS secretary, Mr. Kennedy, who thinks we should start using bleach at the health.
Well,
if you repress children, it's just going to lead to something worse. It's just going to lead to trauma, and a lot more damage when they get older. So just let them be free. Sorry.
And also, like things like puberty blockers and hormone therapy are not intrinsically gender affirming. They're just actually leading them to develop puberty later so that they can actually have an informed decision to whether to transition. Once you take off puberty blocker, puberty proceeds as, it is essentially beneficial to children who want to make their own decision down the road.
And there are examples. Jazz Jennings, she just graduated Harvard. She seems to be doing very well, and she has, maybe one of the things she's considering in her career track is going back to television, and hopefully she'll be able to be a leader in the community and representing positive role models for the trans community.
Well, God knows Caitlyn Jenner is not one of them.
Well, you brought up a good point. This does have wider ramifications in the medical community. One, they're meddling in education again, which they're like, let's disband education, but in higher education, we're going to tell you what to teach and what not to teach. These hormone blockers, that they do have other medical uses. I had a dear friend, trans male, and he found out that he had higher testosterone levels in his body already naturally, so his transition was much quicker, and there were a lot of medical things that they didn't know, and they're now learning. And he actually has his PhD in trans identity and does all. And I went to some of these, and it's amazing to me because I had questions and I educated myself. Children, very young ages know, and to be able to help them and guide them, and not only that, when did the government start to step in and tell parents how to parent? And that's what this is.
Ironically, this is the party for small governments, right? Just small enough to fit in your bedroom, fit in your doctor's office, fit in...
Right. Well, this is the thing where Marjorie Taylor Greene's a better politician than people realize. Trump's already signed an executive order. The Republican Party is probably going to find a way to pass this sort of legislation. And, the scary thing is there's a group of Democrats like Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, for those that want to call their congressman, has tried to say, oh, well, the trans issue is what cost us the election, which, of course, a myth. We all know that it's a myth. But, I fear that some Democrats will join the Republicans on this. And then in the Senate, Republicans seem to be very good at passing stuff without worrying about the filibuster. So I'm very scared that this will pass. And I fear for the kids that it'll affect.
Well, that's the thing. This whole tagline, protect the children, and I mean, they're attaching it to everything.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to parents, your child is definitely something you want to protect. However, the government's telling you how to protect that child instead of letting you protect the child to your best ability.
When you jingoize something like a phrase, like, this is anti-Semitism, this is to protect the kids, or, any other phrases it essentially loses their meaning. Because, if you really want to protect the kids, shut down every church. Because you know what? Every day, the clergyman has been arrested for explicit materials, or touching kids, or being inappropriate to women, or even outright, SA and other horrible things they done to kids and women. And somehow, that you tell people to go to church every Sunday.
I was going to say, go look up the sex offenders list and tell me how many trans people are on there. Tell me how many drag queens are on there. Tell me how many, LGBT. It's
zero.
Yeah. Well,
zero.
I can't comment on that, but I think we can all agree that the best way to protect our kids is to keep them away from Donald Trump.
Yes.
100%.
Absolutely.
And that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story of today. I'm Leo Harley, and let's queer up trans rights. Simone Biles apologizes after a heated exchange with Riley Gaines over trans athletes in sports. Olympic gymnastics champion Simone Biles is speaking out and apologizing after a fiery exchange online with Riley Gaines, a former University of Kentucky swimmer and a vocal opponent of transgender inclusion in women's sports. Over the weekend, Biles responded sharply to Gaines' comment on post celebrating a high school girls soft team in Minnesota. The learn included a trans girl who helped pitch team to victory. Gaines, in response to the team success, wrote, quote, "Comment off, LOL, to be expected when your star player is a boy," end quote. Biles fired back, tweeting, quote, "You're truly sick. All of this campaigning because you lost the race. Straight up sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive, or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender category in all sports. But instead, you bully them. One thing is for sure, is no one in sport is safe with you around," end quote. Gaines, who tied the fifth with Leah Thomas, a trans swimmer, in 2022, called Biles' reaction disappointing and mocked her with a tweet suggesting she compete in the men's category events in gymnastics in 2028. On Tuesday, Biles offered an apology. Quote, I didn't help for me to get personal with Riley, which I apologize. These are sensitive, complicated issues that I truly don't know and I don't have the answers to or solutions, but I believe it starts with empathy and respect. I was not advocating for policies that compromise fairness in women's sports. My objection is to singling out children for public scrutiny in ways that feel personal and harmful. Gaines accepted the apology, but stood firm. This incident sheds light on the continuing fight for inclusion and dignity in sports. Well, it's been a long-going battle with the trans in sports. I agree. Maybe it would be a good idea to just have a trans category or a trans Olympics Or maybe just have an open category for everybody. We have that in bodybuilding.
Well, we already have the gay Olympics. So, we do have the gay Olympics, and we already do have gay sports. But I think the problem is Biles apologizing for standing up for what she said. Granted, she is somebody with a position and a platform, and getting nasty, as she said, probably doesn't suit her. But unfortunately, at this moment, our backs are up against the wall, right? And quite honestly, this athlete who made the comment, she didn't win, and neither did the
Not only she didn't
swimmer.
win, she was tied at 5th place with a trans swimmer, and for that alone, she has been using that to attack trans athletes ever since.
Which makes no sense.
She has been a talking head. She basically accepting Fox News checks over and over and over again. Right. Just go up to relive that grievance. Oh no, someone actually, a trans person, swim as fast as I did. That must be cheating. You didn't even qualify for the top 3.
Exactly.
I mean, a grifter on Fox News, like, oh my God, that's breaking news. I was a little surprised with Simone, but I thought, to be honest, sorry, Leah, with this, but like, I thought she was apologizing for trying to just say that there should be a transgender sports section, because that would be very discriminatory towards trans people. Like, we don't do separate but equal. Trans women are women, trans men are men. But then to see her apology, like, I don't want to set policy that could take away the fairness in women's sports. That is, Simone Biles, that is very inappropriate to say after, to backtrack on that. Trans people, if you're going to speak on trans issues and then try and step back from that, that's even worse than getting involved in the first place. Like, either stand up for people or sit down and shut up.
Absolutely.
That's my opinion.
And the thing is if I were Simone's publicist or whatever, crisis manager, I would never have apologized. You're on the right side of history. Stick to it. I mean, who cares what the other people think? You'll be vindicated eventually, even if you get short-term threats.
And even though she did say that, she did say within the statement, I don't have the answers. Yeah. And there's a lot of times we have these conversations, and I say this, I don't have the answers, but let's keep talking about it. And what I think is interesting is that we keep hearing people, oh, trans athletes are too strong to compete in the category, blah, blah, but they're not strong enough to be in the military. So, like, again, it's not about the trans people. It's about control.
And also, I just want to add that all those cisgender athletes or even sports players who walk away, like one of them walked away from a dart tournament, one of them walked away from a pool tournament. This does not require extraordinary strength. And also, have you noticed that they keep talking about trans women, but never trans men? They never ever trans men. I mean, if the goose, if what's good for the goose is what's good for the gander, then should we talk about how like cis men are inherently stronger than trans men, and therefore that trans men has an unfair disadvantage?
Well, it's not a proof that any individual could be stronger or less stronger than another individual, even of other genders.
Their logic,
I know that their logic, but they're fools. This idea, of this strong trans person, Malcolm X, and I'm not going to get his quote right. He would warn, it's always interesting how the oppressor always likes to find ways to show the violence of the actually oppressed, make them look like they're much stronger than they actually are, and pretend that the oppressor is the victim. And that's what we're seeing in the whole trans sports debate.
I mean, I know some cisgendered women who could beat cisgendered men in sports, on the court, off the court, on track. I've played in sports and I can't tell you how many times I had a cisgendered woman beat me at track, and I ran track. I mean, the idea of trans men and women being less or equal to or better, or it's your ability as a person in sports to train properly for that given sport to your best ability. And if you can't train to your best ability, don't blame it on the person next to you. You lost because of you, not because of somebody else. Plain and simple.
Yep.
So that is the big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up drag culture. First ever drag race crossover, drag queen Utica joins Project Runway Season 21. Get ready for a fabulous fashion crossover. RuPaul's Drag Race star Utica Queen, known off stage as Ethan Munn, is training the workroom for the workroom. She's just been announced as one of the designers on Project Runway Season 21. Utica made a big impression back in Season 13 of Drag Race from that unforgettable sleeping bag couture at the bag ball to her quirky offbeat humor, lip sync surprises, and yes, that moment RuPaul flipped her off during the roast. Now she's stepping into a whole new challenge, this time as a designer, competing among 11 other fashion creatives. Munt shared on Instagram, quote, "This moment marks the first ever Drag Race crossover onto Project Runway, and that's not lost on me. It's more than a look. It's a symbol of how far our form has come, of how the worlds of fashion and drag continue to grow, influence, and uplift each other," end quote. The season will also see the return of fashion icon Heidi Klum as head judge, joined by Nina Garcia and Law Roach, who drag fans and queens may recognize from the judging panel. And that's not all. Expect appearances from big name guest stars like Sofia Vergara, Tyra Banks, Zach Posen, and Michael Kors. Utica joins a cast that includes past contestants and fresh faces alike, including twin designers Antonio and Jesus Estrada. Project Runway Season 21 kicks off July 31st on Freeform. Don't miss it. Well, I'm excited. My husband Daniel and I used to watch this all the time, and then it kind of got played out. But I'm excited to see there's a new mix and some excitement, so I'm sure we'll be tuning in. What do you all think?
I think that's wonderful. I mean, I only watched the really early seasons. I mean, how many seasons are there now? Like 1,000?
21 is what we reported.
Let's the spin-off.
It's so many, just so many generations, but they are actually produced some genuine stars. Christian Siriano is now clothing the rich and famous on the red carpet. And I think I just saw one of his gangs at Tony's. I'm obligated to.
I mean, look, this is Drag Race and Project Runway are my Olympics and my Super Bowl and my World Series all rolled into one. And Utica is an amazing designer, and it's going to be interesting to see her style and how it relates to actual fashion and not costuming, because drag costuming is much different. But we are seeing, entertainers and musicians and the Met Gala with drag artists and drag performers and their costuming coming to life on, more of a mainstream red carpet. So it's going to be interesting to see how she navigates that. She's a big personality, but she is a very talented designer, and I don't want anybody to take that away from her. So I'm super excited, and I'm going to be tuned in like glue with my popcorn, rooting for her time and time.
I liked seeing LaRoche is involved. He was amazing and legendary, just like absolutely wonderful judge and fashion expert. You mentioned the Met, and you Larry, you were talking about, has Project Runway been a little blah? And I'll just say, Heidi, if your show is as boring as your Met outfit this year, I don't know if you're going to have a season 22. So hopefully you guys are going to have a good, fun time and add some spice to it.
Actually, I'm surprised that they are still, they're still using the same guest stars over and over again. I mean, 21 seasons. You would think that there will be more like younger, more Gen Z or millennial, even younger millennial variety of like designers. I mean.
Well, much like All Stars, you get who says yes.
That's true.
That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Those are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. These anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ community.
If our rainbow family is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and in the headlines.
We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, We must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Rex Rogosch, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Alex Morash, Dr. Bobby Huen, Leo Harley, and Larry Farver, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we hope you will join us by embracing love, generosity, bravery, and be transformative and queer. Good night.
Good night.